Frank Krieger, CISO over at Mambu. I wanted to say I have the most German name possible, but I'm American. So unfortunately, we're going to be doing this in English, or fortunately, depending on how you look at this. I'm joined by Eric today as well, of course from Sumo. And we're going to talk a little bit about the journey that Mambu took when we changed our SIEM platform and some of the discoveries that we found. And I wanted to pass those learning lessons along to the audience. So, onward we go. First of all, a little bit about Mambu. We are a composable banking platform. We exist in the cloud. We're a cloud-based banking platform. We ourselves are not a bank, but we support banks. So a lot of neobanks, a lot of traditional banks in the US, credit unions and various other activities belong inside of the Mambu platform. So we are covering a lot of entities in that regard. I'm going to skip this one. But Mambu at a glance, we're the world leader in cloud banking. Again, we are a composable cloud banking platform, and as such, we are highly regulated. We have lots of requirements baked into us, and a lot of the things that we need really come into play when we're talking with vendors, specifically around the compliance and regulatory pieces. And Sumo was a very good partner in this, and this is why Mambu agreed to work with them on this specific thing. So, a little bit of numbers. Excellent. So, let's start. Mambu is a modern banking platform, meaning that we are, of course, cloud-based. We are multi-cloud. We have a tremendous amount of transactional information moving through constantly, continuously, and then add end of month to that, and it goes crazy. But we are 100% cloud native. Prior to tooling, our prior tooling wasn't built on that though. So I will say that what ended up happening when I arrived at Mambu about a year and a half ago was looking at the environment, what I saw was there was a legacy build and then there was a cloud build. So as an example, our previous SIEM was on-prem, which in banking makes total sense. If you're running a bank, these services run internally, but if you're running a cloud structure, if you're a SaaS operation, on-prem solutions are a little bit daunting and take a lot of care to manage those things. So when we looked at that, we found out that that really wasn't fitting the model that we had planned to work with. Critical telemetry as well wasn't being ingested correctly. So again, with the legacy platform that we had, there were some issues with its ingestion, and when I looked at that, and I started talking with the security engineering teams and various other things, what we were able to pull out was the previous SIEM solution that we had wasn't properly sized or adjusted for the environments that we were actually trying to create today. They were baked in about 3.5 years ago at the sizing and levels then. That was actually really detrimental, and you'll see as we kind of progress through this what the effect of that was. But as you can see as well in the presentation, we had fragmented logs. It really slowed the audit work. It was becoming very manually intensive to validate our positions. Even though we had these really good tools, they just weren't configured for cloud. And as a cloud provider or cloud service, what we found out was that it was taking an incredible amount of effort to validate our postures, not just with external auditors, not just with regulators, but with our customers. And that was not tenable. We had to change something, and we had to make the move. Along with that, as I kind of mentioned, the support costs were getting out of control for on-prem solutions. So we had a very complex SIEM, required a lot of people to manage the SIEM effectively. And as a result, what ended up happening is when I arrived, there was a skill gap. Finding these people that can manage these types of very complex systems is difficult. Generally, we have to dislodge them from another organization to bring them over to our organization. They're not just magically coming out of boot camps that we can just grab. So that was also one of the issues that we had. And we didn't need a new vendor. We needed something a little bit different. And this is where the Sumo story kind of comes into play here. For what we needed, again, a SaaS native solution. It's really important. If we're a cloud-based solution provider, then we should be using cloud-based solutions to do so. And having to join a legacy system with a cloud-based one was just not functioning very well for us. So, we made the migration. This was, honestly, the best part of this whole thing was the migration was really, really good. It went swimmingly well, better than anticipated. I honestly was surprised. I expected a lot more issues with our switchover and redeployment. It went very well. But again, to preface that, Sumo was a good partner, and that's why I'm happy to talk about them. But when we turned that thing on, just shock, absolute shock at what we were seeing. Mainly because we were expecting to digest about 50 gigabytes a day, and in reality, when we turned it up, we were looking at 500 gigabytes a day. And that is not what we signed for. And I know that everybody in the audience is like, size out these things properly. We did. We sized it out properly. We took a long time to sit there and vet this information before we did it. But when we turned it up and started adding data sources, it changed. The GCP telemetry had been invisible under the legacy solution. So the previous SIEM, for some reason, they had decided to exclude the GCP elements from the collection. And when we started to do these migrations, what we saw was that we needed to add these. I mean, if we're gonna address risk and security at a proper level, we can't be excluding clouds from that view. Sumo surfaced a true volume, which again, we didn't fully understand when we looked at the old SIEM and the way it was digesting. It was eye-opening. And again, I don't like to sit in front of my executive team and explain to them that I missized a SIEM solution and we're gonna have to readjust that. But we have to do that. And more importantly, it raised the risk associated with security in a way that was understandable to the board and the executive team around security. Me saying that we need to up our security doesn't necessarily translate to much, but if you can quantify that as a risk, that is very helpful. This was a big risk. They noted it. We saw it. The telemetry wasn't too big. Our planning was shallow. And that's true. You know, one of the things about working in SaaS is the transparency aspect of what we do. We're in clouds, we have customer data, we have commitments to you as customers and to our parties, and we have to be transparent about that. And when we look at that, we see that we didn't plan properly in some areas for the SIEM deployment. And one of the areas I will say was, we spent a lot of time looking at our previous SIEM and understanding its digestion, understanding what it was consuming, understanding how much the flow was going through that. But what we didn't do is we didn't spend time looking at the exclusions within that system to understand what it was excluding. Because if we had done that work, what we would have found was that there was a bunch of exclusions in there, in the legacy system. And it wasn't properly sizing volume. What we had was the exclusioned version of volume. Visibility at the scale isn't a failure. It's, again, and this is the way that Mambu thinks about it, this was kind of a reconciliation around security and risk. It wasn't visible. We don't have a tolerance for this type of activity. When it became visible, it forced that maturity to happen. And we all want maturity within our security programs, and more importantly, we want that to adjust upwards towards the board as risk. And this was one of those moments where we had to take a look at ourselves and say, this is bad. We need to make some changes. We're not consuming everything, and how can we have a full picture if we're not looking truly at all the clouds that we have going on? So, as I mentioned a couple times, remember that partnership. This would have been incredibly difficult to go and stand in front of my board again and say, I need more money. I need more money to do a thing because the original project wasn't scoped correctly and we found a bunch of issues. What made this a lot easier is that while working with Sumo, our partner on this, it was different. So the first thing that happened is we saw the volume, we saw the ingestion rates skyrocketing. The same day that we saw the ingestion rates skyrocketing, Sumo notified us that our credit usage was way out of whack. I've worked with lots of vendors, and a lot of times that call doesn't come to the end of the month. And by the way, you've consumed so many credits by that point, now you're in a very bad position. So what I really appreciated at the onset was when we discovered this problem, Sumo said, oh, wait a minute, you guys are consuming wild amounts of credits. We need to talk to you about this. Additionally, like I said, we saw that we were consuming wild amounts of credit, but it was nice to know that they proactively reached out to us and said, hey, guys, you can't sustain yourself on this. You're gonna burn through your stuff very quickly. One thing that they did, So we saw what was happening as we reached out to Sumo and said, can we have some time to think about this and actually get some commercial, I guess we need to figure out the commercials. And in order to do that, we actually need to get true volume going on this. So when we did that, Sumo graciously said, we will pause your credits while you resize yourself so that we can figure out actually what your true size is. Give you a little time to optimize, figure out what you can do internally in-house, and what will maybe drop the rates down a little bit, but they worked with us on that piece. They also brought in their SMEs, which was, again, critical. Most of us in the security space are quite understaffed. We don't have as many people as we all wish we could have, and we have to do with what we have. They're already very busy working on many different projects, but Sumo brought their SMEs in and worked very quickly to change and look at the ingestion rates to figure out what was going on in that space. Additionally, we then started, of course, to work through the licensing adjustment. So again, nobody likes to be surprised. I don't like to surprise my board. I don't like to surprise the executive team as well, that we are having to make some adjustments to the cost models that we are looking at. But it was a rational decision. And again, it was wrapped within the confines of security and risk. Once the initial shock wore off around that in terms of like, whoa, you guys missized, how did that happen? And they understood how the missizing occurred, they were very open to fixing the issue. And that's really what a lot of CISO's jobs are, is to, again, surface that to the right people, explain it in the context that needs to be explained in, and then make sure that they're aware of the risk and whether or not they're willing to accept these risks. So once we talked to the executive team and made the adjustments, they were like, we can't accept that risk. We have to fix this, so let's make the adjustments accordingly. This wasn't just tooling support, this was a platform level partnership. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, I work with tons of vendors. Some of them I just absolutely don't want to talk to on the phone. I have a contract with you, let's play through it. But Sumo has been a very good partner in this. Mambu is not a massive organization, we're about 600 people. And we're very, very busy supporting lots of different activities. And when we had this issue, Sumo was right there. They really, really were on the scene trying to explain to us, hey, this is how you can solution it, this is how you can get out of this issue, this is a better way to consume your credits, have you considered this, have you considered that? So, back to the business piece of this. The business reaction, of course, they were not happy. Nobody likes to surprise the business. But, as I wrote here, visibility creates tension. It does. You're causing a conversation to occur. And that, unfortunately, is sometimes very tense. You have to have a very open discussion about what you found. But it created maturity within the organization. It really, really changed the perception of what security was doing and what we could do. And it gave the executive team especially insight into the fact that we were able to see these issues once we understood what was going on within the environments. So again, this is a big piece that dealing with the business on these pieces, I'm not oblivious to the fact that these are costly activities. But again, putting these things in terms of risk was very helpful for them to understand. A few talking points. We frame the cost as uplift and shift in posture. We also position this as visibility spike for operational truth, not overage. So again, I know that some of these terms and some of these positions might seem arbitrary or we're backing ourselves into an answer. But in reality, again, we are very transparent why this occurred with our business. We were very transparent that we need to fix this. Here's the risk associated with these activities. And again, they were very, very understanding of that piece. I can't promise that every business will be, but at least Mambu was. So what changed for Mambu with the solution? We now have very comprehensive telemetry across all of our platforms, AWS, GCP, Azure. They're all coming into that place. We have one unified log stream. I cannot emphasize how important this is. It was very, very hard previously when we were working with the legacy system. Additionally, we now own observability. So previously, we did rely upon our DevSec and more importantly, the engineering functions to provide that insight to us. With the Sumo platform, we can do it ourselves now, which is really, really time-saving. The addition is that being the size that we are, Mambu, we can't have a traditional SOC. That's going to require an immense amount of people. But this allowed us to explore the managed detection and response options as well. So this has been really helpful. It's something that, at least for us, brought value. Again, we're a cloud-native company, so we're working in that space. So we're looking for cloud-native solutions. No platform to rebuild, cost-controlled, scale preserved. These are true. We didn't have to go and redo the whole thing. And I will say this, and some of the conversations I've had with Sumo about this, it's a lot easier for companies like Mambu that had a SIEM to understand what they're trying to do and what they want to purchase. It's often more difficult for companies that have never deployed that technology to understand what that really is. So that was very helpful from our part. And I can't promise, again, that experience will be the same for everyone, but at least if you have familiarity with it, I find that working with Sumo was very good. More importantly, and at the end of the day, this is really what I'm there to do, is we matured the security posture. And again, it was uncomfortable conversations. Nobody likes to have the conversation about why, a year and a half or 2 years ago, some rule was put in place that changed to the ingestion rates of the legacy system. It was very, very big. So, strategic lessons. As I mentioned, again, visibility can create tension. I feel like that's repeating. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Our platform is scales. When you do this, and you're switching SIEMs or you're deploying a SIEM, it's very important to get that traffic study done correctly, the ingestion rates. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's what we found is that we had a blind spot. This deployment caused us to realize that we had a blind spot within our environment, and we needed to fix that. And again, raise that visibility up to the ELT and to the board. Confidence in your ingestion models. This is a big deal. Again, you're hearing me say that we thought we had confidence, and we didn't. This is something that a lesson learned on our part from Mambu, that we need to dig deeper, not take the first pass, not take just the base level of information that's being presented by, say, the legacy system. We need to understand further. We were hampered with that, but we understand why that occurred. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with, and I'll turn it over to Eric, is really get a good partner. Somebody that's going to work with you and understand these things. I'm very lucky that I work in an industry like SaaS, because it forces this transparency activity within our space. And if we don't have partners that are transparent, what we end up with is me on a call or a video conference talking to a partner that doesn't feel like they're understanding. And again, you have to have that transparency, and you need to be open with them. And that's how real partnerships work. We all throw the word around partner vendor, that they're a partner vendor. We say that often very, very much at the executive level, but I feel that a lot of times we just say that to denote that we have a partner that's a vendor. Sumo went over and above, and I really appreciate that. And I'll turn it over to Eric and let you go your bit, sir.
Thank you, Frank. Can you guys hear me? Yeah, I think so. Okay. So my name is Erik de Buger. I'm a solution engineer at Sumo Logic. I also enjoyed a lot working with Mambu. Let me go over to my slides. Just real quickly, Sumo Logic, who really are we? Just a few key numbers. We have been around, not really a startup. Commercial numbers, but the interesting ones are the 3.5 exabytes that we take in on a daily basis. We index it, we store it, and we analyze it, or allow our customers to analyze it. That's an incredible data amount, volume, that we can only do because we truly have a cloud-native architecture. Other things interesting are, I think, the integrations, obviously, and over 2,000 customers. So we have been around, we have a good platform. What we really do is turning this type of unstructured and sometimes structured transactional log messages. We take that from anywhere, in any language, in any shape and form, and we turn it into this for observability purposes, perhaps, and this for security purposes. Now, taking in that type of volume and taking in all those differentiated log sources, one sort of key element to me, why I like Sumo and working for Sumo so much, one of the many things, is schemaless ingest. It is impossible to understand all of the data that is thrown to you, sometimes unexpectedly, like Frank alluded to, you cannot. So you need kind of a schemaless ingest way to take anything, put it in your infrastructure, allow it to be analyzed, and then starting make sense of it. That schemaless ingest and schema on the fly when we start searching and analyzing is key, I think, to the success of Sumo Logic. Now, this is our SIEM solution that you're looking at. And I have to be mindful of the time, actually. So it does a lot of correlation on unstructured data. It structures it, it enriches it. It puts a lot of sort of intelligence around it. And ultimately, it leads you into those inner circle. Those are the insights. Those are really correlated security detections. Too much to actually go into the detail how that is established, but that's how it works. And what is really, really nice is that you can very easily, because we have a real-time architecture, it allows you to go down from a very high-level incident all the way down to a whole lot of data, to the individual data elements that have actually contributed to the incident. That sets us apart. That is not possible in search-based architectures. This is only possible in real-time, rule-based detection architectures. And then at the end, if you have detected certain things, we allow you to automate, remediate, and actually reach out to other environments and have changes made or things isolated or just taking enrichment information to be better capable of analyzing the incident. Coming back to the core, cloud native, many different definitions of that I've noticed since I've been working in cloud. Some people think if they hire a warehouse somewhere and they take all of their in-house machines and put them on a truck and put them in that warehouse, they go, okay, we're in cloud now, yeah? Cloud native, in our definition, really means if you join up with Sumo, say in Frankfurt, we run on AWS infrastructure, there's only one Sumo Logic there. We precisely start up nothing for you. That is very different than many of our competitors, which will actually start fiddling around with individual environments, and you will be in cloud, fair enough, but there will be a specific boxed-in environment for you. With Sumo, we built nothing for you. You just join the group. There's only one Sumo Logic running in Frankfurt, taking care of all of our customers. And that really translates in a bunch of advantages that we can do things in a different way. Just to mention a few. Unlimited scalability. Yeah, we use AWS. If you cannot blow AWS out of the water, you probably cannot blow Sumo out of the water. Yeah, and this happens, as Frank alluded to. People think they have certain transaction volumes. It turns typically out to be way more. Yeah, real-time detection. I spoke about it. Yeah, that's a unique, I think, feature that we have, that we can allow real-time context to build. For that, on the sizing that we are talking about, you need sort of a cloud-native architecture to have the scalability to maintain all those real-time contexts. We can do that. That turns into high quality. We have only one instance to maintain. We don't need to patch 2,000 customers. We need to patch one system or improve one system living in Frankfurt. Last but not least, ease of use, as Frank says, immediate value. You don't have to do any housekeeping. You can start using the system. And AI, we use Bedrock. It allows us to put AI in many sort of corners and parts of our system to help detections, but also to help investigations and creating queries and what have you. Mindful of time, I have to kind of go to the end of this. Example customer, 35 terabytes a day, scales up, what can I say? Actually, that was a little bit faster than I wanted to. I'm sorry for that, but we're running out of time. So I think there's maybe time for one question, actually. Thank you, Frank.
Gibt es denn Fragen von euch? So, aus dem Online-Teilnehmerkreis. Ihr habt jetzt auch noch circa 10 Sekunden, eure Frage einzutippen. Ist nicht so einfach, als einfach die Hand zu heben. Ansonsten habe ich nämlich noch abschließend eine Frage. Ich stelle sie mal kurz auf Englisch, sonst wird es schwierig. Can you tell us which results could have been delivered after the change?
Say that again, please.
Which results could have been delivered after the change?
I'm sorry. So,
When you switched to Sumo Logic,
Yes.
which results gave it to you?
which results gave me, or when did we discover the? I guess the overage.
Yes.
We discovered it probably about 3 weeks into our switchover. We were adding data sources, we were adding more data sources, and the team added data sources, and then the system went a little nutty. And we couldn't figure out why that was happening, at least initially. So we spent probably a half a day trying to figure that out. At the same time, Sumo called in and said, this is what appears to be happening.
Okay, great. Thank you. Und wenn ihr noch irgendwelche Fragen habt, zum Beispiel, wie man das Ganze effizient skaliert, was Sumo Logic dazu beigetragen hat, wie es bei Mambu lief, die beiden Kollegen sind heute noch den ganzen Tag am Stand da. Besucht sie gerne, aber vorab bewertet jetzt auf jeden Fall die Session. Ihr lieben Teilnehmer könnt eigentlich hier sitzen bleiben. In 5 Minuten geht es nämlich tatsächlich weiter. Liebe Online-Teilnehmer, ihr müsst tatsächlich den Raum wieder switchen und in die Keynote von Artem eintreten. Und dann starten wir hier pünktlich um 11:30 Uhr. An euch sage ich nochmal, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here. Und dann bis gleich.
Thank you.
Thank you.